Hello. By way of introduction, my name is Sunil Kumar, and I work in the Department of Social Policy at the London School of Economics and Political Science. My work on housing, especially on the role of low-income landlords in providing rental accommodation, as well as my work on the urbanization, construction, migration nexus in India and in South Asia, is all about creating a level playing field. It's about creating the opportunities where inequalities are reduced, and definitely it's about ensuring that discrimination is reduced and to the extent that it no longer exists. So whether I'm looking at access to housing, or I'm looking at how migrant workers are exploited both in the workplace, namely wages and working conditions, or their living conditions in the labor camps that accompany large-scale construction. This is all about equality, and it's about anti-discrimination. It is also about the need to value work, to value all work, and to value all workers as human beings. Housing affects our entire life, from birth to death, and is thus different from other social policy subjects, such as education or health, which might come to one's attention, or one might find the need depending on their family cycle. Housing has also enabled me to engage with other related issues such as basic services, water and sanitation, for example, as well as employment and the exploitation that's built into it. So this work on housing, which has focused on discrimination and inequalities, underpins some of my more recent research on urban transformations. Urban transformations, namely the desire to modernize, to become world-class cities, to open up spaces for financial capital investment in real estate, have given rise to large-scale construction projects such as infrastructure, megacity sporting events, commercial and high-tech and biotechnology industrial complexes. The manner in which these construction projects procure migrant construction workers, namely, migrant construction workers are treated as commodities to be disposed of within and across national borders, is something that has concerned me for a long time. This is also the case with migrant seasonal agricultural workers in the so-called global north as well. When we talk about equality, we are not talking about equalness. We're talking about the need to value all work, and that all work carries with it dignity. And the fact that we somehow create a hierarchy of the value of work, for me, is problematic. And I use the analogy of the hand, where the fingers are of different lengths. And if you were to ask somebody which finger you wouldn't mind losing, they would give you an answer, but they would realize the value of that particular finger only when they've lost it and have to use the hand again. So the idea is that we're talking about working in a symbiotic, harmonious relationship, but the way in which society values work and treats workers is not that. I'm interested in the worker, the goods they produce and the services they offer, whether as construction workers or domestic workers. Their ill and often mistreatment is about equality in wages and working conditions. It's also about the recognition of the work they do. So my research interests are about valuing work, about the dignity of all work, irrespective of how society ranks it. For instance, COVID-19 has changed our understanding of who key workers are. Key workers normally would have been associated with doctors and nurses, the police, the fire service. But COVID-19 has shown that the people who clean our streets, the people who stack our supermarket shelves, are all very, very important to our lives. I think this is an opportunity to extend this valuing of workers to the millions of informal workers in construction and others involved in the production of goods and services. My training as an architect has come home to roost in a sense, because the research project that I did on urbanization, construction, migration nexus in 5 cities in South Asia was coming back to this question of how architects ignore the workers that make their ideas of a building or of a particular vision actually come to be. So without the workers, the architects have nothing to show for their creative and intellectual endeavors. And it then struck me that what I had learned from my parents about the value and dignity of workers was so much part of the manner in which migrant construction workers were used in construction, but not at all recognized. There are many potential users of the research that I have been conducting. These include students, academics, including those working in research and policy institutions, voluntary or civil organizations and community-based groups, governments, both at the local, regional, and national level, bilateral organizations such as USAID, the Asian Development Bank, GTZ, the German Development Agency, and now what is called the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. My research will also be of interest to organizations such as the World Bank and the ILO. Now, to be honest, and this question is often asked of us, in what way has your research influenced policy? And I'll be honest by saying it hasn't. And this is not to do with the research per se, but the ideas contained in that research, in my research, and the complexity and the nuances of life in relation to housing and in relation to internal migration and construction and urbanization and urban transformation often does go against the grain of what is politically feasible. Nevertheless, I am still convinced, and I hold a very strong position, that work and the dignity of work, in other words, needs to be really looked at and supported. I think that society has to engage in a new social contract, so to speak, where all work is recognized and valued.